Pacific people. And I would like to ask Rangi Davis from Aotearoa to come forward, and Neles Tebay from West Papua, so they can share with us their insights and understandings of the situation in the Pacific. In the tradition of the Maori marae, the meeting place, it is the woman who speaks first and calls people onto the marae. So I'm going to ask Rangi Davis to speak to you first. Rangi is of the Ngāpui, Ngātehine, Ngāti Wai tribes. She whakapapas, or her genealogy goes back into those tribes in the North Island of New Zealand. She is married to Kingi. I'm sorry that we weren't able to bring Kingi here so that we could introduce him to you as well. They have 7 grown children, 22 mokopuna, or grandchildren, and 1 great-grandchild. Rangi's mother was steeped in Te Ao Māori and also in Catholic tradition and teachings. And that in itself, the way in which Māori adopted Catholicism, is an interesting story of its own. Her father was also steeped in tikanga Māori with sprinklings of the teachings of the Anglican faith. And ecumenism began first in New Zealand strongly among the Māori people. Her passion is assisting others to find peaceways to peace within themselves, which means restoring relationships at many stages and levels of life. Rangi herself loves life and the potential that the universe has in store for those who dare to make a difference. And she uses in her work Te Ao Māori Indigenous approach to whanaungatanga, that is relationships, and HOHOURONGO, that is peace. So in all her work she is working in these areas. So without further ado, I'm going to ask Rangi to address us and share with us her understandings of Te Ao Māori. Kia ora tātou.
Do I sit or stand?
Sit. Stand. More relaxing. Are you happy as it?
Tina, tina koutou, kia ora rā, e nei te mihi, kia koutou katoa, ko mana ki tanga, kia hau nei. Tō reira, kia ora rā. Tina koutou. Thank you, Kevin, for your introduction of this woman. I think I'm not recognizing. But thank you very much for those beautiful words. Okay, I'm new on the block, you know, and this is absolutely brand new for me, scary, might be a bit block fear here and there, but not really, because over the last 2 days, I felt really welcomed. I was in the right place. I was sensing a spirituality of Indigenous peoples and their stories that came with them. What really, really moved me was the stories of seeking peace. And Kevin has been trying to get me involved in this for a long time, and I didn't come because I wasn't too sure about what it was he was doing. He always seemed to be busy. And one day my spirit moved me to go and listen. And then I went home that night and I said to my husband, I went to a peace meeting tonight and they talked about violence all night. And so that really moved me in different ways also. And listening to you people in the last few days, I know that this is the right place for me at this time of my life. Because I'm working in a community who have many, many immigrants, like from Burma, from Malaya, from South Africa, Tonga, Samoa, Island, Rarotonga, all in one community in 16 houses. I just moved into this community and I have already knocked on these 16 houses, and I have run a community barbecue for them on Friday before I came, just to meet and greet these people, because I haven't been exposed to the global world like what I'm listening to here. But for me, I have a proverb that captures all of that. He aha te mea nui, he tangata, he tangata, he tangata. What is the greatest gift on earth? It is a human being. So what I felt when I met here was human to human, human to human. So thank you for greeting me in your human way. And now I feel I'm at home and I can start to tell my story or share with you an Indigenous story, if you like, or practice. Whanaungatanga, and I heard somebody talk really strongly about this morning, is about relationships, right relating, and relationships intact is so important to having peace. But how do we get there is the thing. Okay, if we can. Christi, it's through Christ's lived examples we can find a way to peace. This is just my image. Next one. We did this welcome yesterday, the karanga from the women's first. In our culture, it's about complementary roles. That's how it's supposed to be. Things have changed. Women are now playing men's roles. And I don't think men are playing women's roles, but it's meant to be a complementary role in the way we do things. So we did our introduction yesterday morning, so we'll move on. Because I've got 33 slides, I timed myself, I've got 30 seconds per slide. I did a little bit of research about Pax Christi to find where do I fit into this picture. And so I learned these things about transforming the world, shaken by these violence, terrorism, deepening equalities, global securities. I thought, wow, what a group of people. I've got to meet them. You know, even if I have to go halfway across the world. Thank you, Kevin. And it became a crusade of prayer for peace among nations. And the one that I want to speak about is the human rights or the human dignity from a Maori perspective. And some more things I learned about Pax Christi and the Catholic social teachings. So this one here, human dignity, is the one I'm going to be talking about. And spirituality of that human dignity from a Maori culture. Okay, you can have all these slides afterwards when I finish anyway. They can email it out to you. Next one. Relationships too with atua, with the world, and with people must be happening in that relationship, circle, pyramid, or whatever shape you want to make that. And we sang that song yesterday, so we'll move on. It's amazing how you've covered most of this stuff. Are you all Maori? He Maori tō te tangata, he whakapapa tōna, he mana motuhake. So, you know, in relationships, if we were to see all the gifts that are happening in the world that God created for us to see, He's always watching us. And, you know, this is an image of, I see it as as the eyes of God watching us all the time. And somebody talked about this morning the dream, and I always say in my storytelling that God has a dream, and He's still dreaming. And in His dream, He put us there to fulfill that dream. And what I'm hearing about now is exactly what's happening. So God, don't wake up yet. We're still trying to make that dream happen. Ko wai koe. So we go right back to the beginning for Maori spirituality and our relationships. And we use images, and that's why I was there yesterday going with the pen. Our language is full of images and things that are happening on the ground all the time. You know, you see movement from life, from birth to death, and that's how we see it. So we use the image of water, ko wai koe. Who water you? From which water did you flow? From which blood did you flow? Which is your bloodline? Which is your genealogy? And Mātāpuna can be God the Creator, or the main source or wellspring from which the source began. The tūpuna is the next well. All the gifts come from this well, flows into the next generation, which is the ancestors or the wisdom wells. And I say in the Jesus whakapapa, from God the Creator to Jesus. So I'm doing two whakapapa here, and from our tupuna ancestors to the next generation of ancestors. And then the next generation is the mokopuna, or the descendants or grandchildren. And I put it this way, the Mātāpuna, God's face, the giver of life, flows to the tūpuna, Jesus putting a face to God in the miracles of teaching and healing, and the mokopuna as us doing God's work, making Christ alive in our efforts on earth. Okay, you'll get all that, because I come here not just as me. I come here with all this ancestry, with all these stories, with my rivers and the mountains. In Aotearoa we say, I am the mountain and the mountain is me. I am the river and the river is me. And so we have a tribe in New Zealand who have made their river their ancestor. And so that it's the connections what we're trying to share the message to the people, that we are the earth and the earth is us. And so we need to recognize and acknowledge how we interact with the very thing that keeps us alive. All right, next one. Oh, that's a big circle. We might come back to that later if I have enough time, but you can have copies of that. Next one. In the Māori world, we believe the meaning of tapu. So tapu is one of the big words. It's tiny, it's only got 4 letters, but it means huge things. So it's the state of being because it exists, no matter what form or shape. I better look at these notes. And we believe that tapu encompasses the whole spectrum of realities and their relationships to other realities. It encompasses the encounters between one reality and another. It signifies the control system that regulates encounters between realities to ensure not just the survival, but even more so, the enhancement of all realities. So that's looking for peace, probably. And here's tapu again, the relationship of the whenua, the cosmos, the elements and people with our God. The imparting and the giving of God towards people and land in those relationships. Okay, move on to the next one. also tapu restrictions, which means God saw all that he had made and it was very good. So we have to look after it. So we have a tapu restrictions, which is about setting limits and boundaries. It's really a safety measure and set aside for the purpose of protecting and conserving food or water sources or rahui. Like if somebody drowns in a river, straight away a tapu is placed on it. And people who don't understand say, hey, it's really hot today, come go for a swim. It's not about that. It's more about the spiritual connection, respecting the earth, respecting what's happened to the person who has gotten drowned, but that person is related to somebody else. Has a mother, father, family, brothers, sisters. So it's really a wider connection of relationships that we are honouring and respecting when something like this happens. To assist with, to stop access to dangerous places and prevent accidents or to protect them from harm. And when we were little growing up, if we didn't listen to our parents or our grandparents, they say, stay away from that swimming pool, you're going to get drowned, stop jumping off that tree. And we run back there again and just jump into the river. And it could be dangerous, we don't know. We still do it, and in the end, our grandfather just says, it's tapu down there. We never went back again, until we got older, because then we started thinking, ooh, might be a taniwha in here or something like that. But the taniwha was an image of safety, really. That's what was trying to happen here. Right, next one. And so I just want to do a little model here that I developed about these tapu boundaries. Tapu-i, and if anybody knew, has anybody met Pa Henare Tate at all? Or heard of him? Okay, he developed these models, and I tried to use them in a way that would assist me with the work that I do, because I'm what they call psychosynthesis counsellor. So I work with a lot of broken people at individual levels, but might be individual levels, they all have families. They all have, which can impact on how that ripples out in the family. So working with their brokenness to restore and enhance that brokenness will ripple out and affect the rest of the family. So tapu-i, in the Maori world, Io was the main god. So we have tapu-i, because you exist, you have a sacredness. Tapu-o, which are the things about you, the dignity, the self-esteem, the worth. And tapu restrictions, which is the boundary that serves to protect what's in it. Okay, next one. Again, you have to roll these up again. All right. So the very intrinsic totality and fullness of tapu, there is source and fulfillment for all tapu-i. So when we're feeling good, when we're feeling at peace, we feel fulfilled. And the work that you're all doing, I'm feeling fulfilled by the work you're all doing. I say, what amazing work. I didn't realize how busy people are out there seeking peace to be fulfilled in the work that we do. Next one. And so, Creator creates, we produce, we reproduce in the Maori way. We keep reproducing, and we got big tribes. We start off with an individual, and that individual meets another individual, and they have another individual, and it becomes a whānau, a family. And whānau in the Māori world is birth, or family. Then they have, like my parents, 11 children. I'm the eldest of 11. And we all meet another person and bring them into the family. And then we all have lots more persons. And then we end up with a hapu, like an extended tribe. And hapu means pregnant. And to get hapu, you've got to have a whānau. And so this big circle gets bigger and bigger until it becomes a iwi. And a iwi means a peoples or a nation. And this is how we get our tribe. But connected to that is the placenta. And when the child is born, the placenta is taken and buried in the earth. And the Maori word for placenta is whenua, land. And so we keep those connections. We're born of God's gift and from the earth in our Maori spirituality story. From earth we came, because that's the first woman, Hine Ahuone, was fashioned from the earth. And when we go back to the earth, it recognises, we go back to Papa Tuanuku. Papa Tuanuku meaning Mother Earth. So those spiritual connections are really, really strong there. That's why when we have tangi, when people die, you know, we do all this, not screaming, but a particular cry of nurturing the stories that this person shared with us. We produce event extensions of tapui. So I have a few extensions of myself, and if anything happens to one of those extensions, it has an impact on me. And therefore, I've got to make sure that I don't hurt anybody else or harm anybody else, because it won't be just an impact on me, it's an impact on my children and my children's children. So if we're looking at God's, Jesus' examples of teaching and healing in the community, and we can reflect that example in the way we work with our own children and in the community, they follow those examples. And this is what happens sometimes today. We see that in the history. Next one. And tapuo. And so this is the next layer, where the dignity, worth, value, authority, personal power, and mana, we call it, mana or self-esteem sits. So imagine if this outside circle is always intact. It's going to look after this self-esteem and dignity, and you're going to be really powerful. You're going to be able to do things, move on, and that's the whole idea of the tapu circle, or tapu restrictions or boundaries. Next one. Oops. What happened there? And tapu restrictions are the outer layers of sacredness that seeks to maintain boundaries and limits set by that restriction. Okay? Let's see what happens when those restrictions are broken. And so I heard people talking all about these on the, just yesterday. Acts of diminishment by violation of humans, family and whakapapa, people, culture, faith and traditions through colonisation, racism, war, murder, domestic violence and non-acknowledgement. To the environment and earthly creatures, burn-offs, replanting of pines, commercial killing, or in the air and the cosmic universe, pollution, global warming, and dust, and land and strata, pollution and mining and fracking, and in water and oceans, all the watery kingdoms, pollution and overfishing. So there's only some of the, you talked about all of this yesterday. But that's a diminishment of the tapu-ness of everything that's been created. And these are just some pictures of what's happening when the tapu is being diminished. So we know this can be inflicted by others to that outer layer, become diminished, we can even disappear. No boundaries for support, therefore exposes what it stands to protect. And we see that in the voiceless and all of those, even the earth, you know, being raped and things like that. And I remember when we had this big pear tree on our property, and it was loaded with pears. But then some local boys came down and stripped it, and my little children came running and said, "Our pear tree's been raped." So that's all he kind of said. And what happens when the earth is being pillaged and raped? Next slide. Oh, keep going. The tapu all violated by self-infliction or by others does have an impact on the whole family and the whole community. The value, worth, dignity becomes diminished and weak, and also loss of self-esteem, no power to achieve, no sense of dignity or worth, and so they become voiceless and hide away. And you've got to go looking for them so you can educate them and help them through these programs. Negative law, in the negative sense, it is the state of diminishment of tapu following the violation. It is also a state of weakness and powers that follows violation. And I'm talking about the earth as well as people and creatures on it. Yep, next one. HOHOURONGO. And this is a term that we use, it's a practice. HOHOURONGO is the principle of bringing about peace through the healing of the violation. The tapu and mana restored, which allows for spaciousness and movement through and into the next threshold. And this is a hard work. This is what a lot of you are doing. It's about negotiating. It's about having skills to hold what's going on when the harm you know has been caused. And it takes skilled people to go and negotiate with one group, go and negotiate with the other group, and then find the right time. The timing has to be right. I think somebody talked about, you know, slow. It takes a long time and it's slow, and it does. If you want the job to be really, really done well, then it does take a lot of negotiating, understanding the people where they're coming from, because when they come from those places, it's got history, it's got stories, and then this painful place that they both sit in. With HOHOURONGO though, it's not just about the person that's been hurt, it's also about the person who'd caused the harm. Because the person who's caused the harm may have had some harm done to them prior to causing harm to the other. And so if you put it on a global level, that's why we have wars. But at a family level, you know, this is where we can practice. Okay? HOHOURONGO practices of healing, restoration, and reconciliations. And of course, we've got to remember that we're not just doing this on our own, that God, prayer is really, really an important part of the flow of the energy, the spirituality, the connectedness. Maybe I'm in the wrong place. But we can only do it with some values. The values help us shape and drive them. The values of tika, pono and aroha in the Maori worlds, justice, faith and truth and integrity, and compassion. People have to play roles, which I'm hearing everybody's playing these really important roles, in their relationship to people, having the power of the Holy Spirit or your mana, because if you're intact, you're going to be able to drive this, and in your relationship with the earth, and with other people. And we call this te wā. Te wā comes. There comes a time and a place, and a space within that time and place. And when it happens, you know it's right. And and that becomes for us te wā. But in the Maori world, we call that wānanga. So wānanga is about learning in that space. So if you were in my land in Aotearoa, I would call this a wānanga. A time and a place and a space of learning. And it's what we learn from that we take to the next wānanga of learning and together. And when this all happens, we get what we call HOHOURONGO. When people are starting to feel heard, acknowledged, their stories are able to be said in such a way that the other hears it and is able to forgive. And we get a place called HOHOURONGO. Sometimes it doesn't completely, because there's always another little wānanga in there that has to be addressed somewhere. But the one that's identified is the one that is worked with. So that there's healing on both sides. Next one. And so these are just understanding the words a bit more, but you can have the slides, okay? Restoring of spiritual well-being, enhances psychological and emotional wellness, physical and socially healthy whanaungatanga, healthy relationships. Right, next one. Elements of principles that assist the actualization of enhanced tapu, flourishing, growth and development, empowered vision, freedom to move, empowering energy, motivated. It requires self-commitment, self-motivation and self-discipline to flourish, but not at the expense or diminishment of others, because we're always working with others. That's the whole idea. Te mana o hehu kawe rangatiratanga, Jesus brings to fulfillment his saving work. And some more words there in terms of how tika requires that mana be exercised. Address, acknowledge, enhancement and restore tapu. Tika me mana be exercised to maintain right ordering of relationships. That mana be rightly exercised to maintain, to ensure responses to tapua, right, fitting and worthy of that sacredness. And truth and honesty, this one seeks to reveal reality as it truly is, and when this is identified, there's freedom to proceed. It is the integrity between thought and word. We've got to be always thinking about how we're going to say it and making sure we have the right words to hold that person in that respective place. And aloha, compassion, generosity, expression of love, respect. You know all that one because I feel it. Up we go. Here we go. If tapu and mana circles are diminished or violated by self-reflection on others, it can have a long-term effect on health and well-being of an individual, a family, a hapu, an iwi, or community. And processes in tikanga Māori, such as whakatika and HOHOURONGO, seek to identify, address, restore and enhance violations or diminishment to enable reconciliation and healing to progress. If done with goodwill, with tika, what is right and fitting, with pono, that's truth and honesty, and integrity, and with lots of patience and love, the enabler and the keeper can seek to restore balance and love if that's what is their choice in the end. Oh no, it's right, to the next one. That's all right. Here we go. Look at Jesus there. HOHOURONGO can assist you. Opening eyes with smiling, opening hearts with smiling eyes. Right. And to finish off, a lamb that the Lord your God cares for, the eyes of the Lord your God are always upon him from from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. And last slide. Oh, no, next one. Oh, whanaungatanga. So to end this, I want to do a little exercise with you. And so I'm going to divide you into groups. This table and this table, we're going to sing the song and do a round. So this table and this table, you're going to be number 1. That table over there, you're going to be number 2. And that table and all those people at the back there, you're going to be the 3rd group, okay? So I want you to sing with me, because we're going to make relationships between God, land, and people. So try and get this. Atua, Atua, let me tell you how I feel. You have given me all your riches. Aroha nui, Aroha nui, whenua, whenua, whenua. Let me tell you how I feel. You have given me all your riches. Aroha nui, Aroha nui. Tangata, tangata, tangata. Let me tell you how I feel. You have given me all your riches. Aroha nui, Aroha nui. Okay, so this table's going to sing it first, and then I'll point to you, and then I'll point to you, and we'll just keep singing it, okay? So ready? Group 1, toru, fa. Atua, Atua, let me tell you how I feel. You have given me all your riches. Aroha nui, Aroha nui, whenua, whenua. Let me tell you how I feel. You have given me all your riches. Aroha nui, Aroha nui. Tangata, tangata. Let me tell you how I feel. You have given me all your riches. Aroha nui, Aroha nui, Aroha nui, Aroha nui. So what's supposed to happen there is we're supposed to be, you hear all the harmonies going through the whole waiata. But there we go, everybody. Thank you very much for that fast move.
Kia ora, Rangi. I'm sure that we'll catch on to that idea of the round sooner or later. It's a great way to finish off. Right now, I'll ask you if you do want any clarification or extension of anything Rangi has said, just hold it in your mind and hold it in your hearts, and we will now hear from Father Neles and to complete our understanding of Pacific spirituality. So over to you, Father Neles.
Wah, wah, wah.
Wah.
Wah, 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 wah. Nurturing indigenous spirituality, building peace in Papua, Indonesia. Thank you, Kevin, for giving me the chance. I write my name, Father Neles Tebay, then Kepadabi. I put Kepadabi because of this indigenous spirituality. The name Kepadabi was given by elders, our tribal leaders, in the celebration of priesthood ordination. So I was given this name, then ordained as a priest. Kepadabi means the one who opens the way, the one who opens the gate, or the one who opens the door. For example, suppose the door is locked, then it is my duty to open it. Then this name will explain why I have been involved in promoting dialogue of building peace in Papua and Indonesia. Okay. So the Papuans are Melanesian. So Melanesian territory or Melanesian spirituality or culture just include Fiji, Vanuatu, Solomon Islands, Papua New Guinea, and West Papua or Papua. We Melanesians are egalitarians, and there are many tribes with different languages, but all Melanesians, we share the same fundamental values. We have 4 fundamental Melanesian values, such as life in abundance, community, right relationship, and reciprocity. So these 4 core values can be found in all Melanesian tribes. Abundant life. It is not simply a biological life. It is also nothing to do with life after death. So we Melanesian, we don't care about life after death, but we care about life in this world. As it is a life in abundance in this world. So one experiences a life in abundance in many forms. For example, being healthy or physically strong, plenty of harvest, many children, plenty of domesticated pigs, success in trading, in fishing, and success in hunting, and etc. So when one is success, you say, okay, I experience what is called salvation or this life in abundance. And abundant life is celebrated by community. And one example of the cultural expression of salvation or abundant life being experienced is wah, 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 wah. So when this experience is here, it means people are experiencing life in abundance, or what we call in salvation or happiness. But if this expression is not here, then there is no salvation. There must be no problem. The second value is community. One experiences an abundant life or salvation only within community. Outside community, there is no salvation. Because outside of the community, one or somebody is you are a stranger. You are not recognized by others. It doesn't belong to you. A community has always a defined territory. And Melanesian community is not only the living, but also the dead, the ancestors, mountain, river, stone, snake, wild animals, forests, and etc. Within the community's territory. And it is the community that the members are, it is in the community that the members are welcomed, defended, supported, and protected. That's why salvation is found, experienced only within the community. Yeah, outside the community, you are a stranger. And the third value is right relationship. A community is maintained and nurtured through right relationships. So there must be right relationship among the members of community, between the living and the river, between the living and the dead, between the living and the ancestors. But community also it can initiate and maintain right relationship with the neighboring communities, neighboring tribes, others. And this right relationship creates friendship, fellowship, networking, security, mutual recognition, and mutual respect. So once a relationship breaks down, the community faces a disaster. For example, many people get sick or die, or less harvest, or less children, or no children, and all this weakens community from within. Therefore, the living members of the community will gather together and discuss to find out which relationship was broken and resulted in a disaster. A relationship damage is and should be restored through the act of reconciliation. If the right relationship is absent, then there must be exploitation, manipulation, oppression, and the violations of human rights. As a result, there must be a disaster, so no salvation, there will be no salvation in the community. The last one, which is reciprocity. Right relationship is expressed and nurtured through the practice of take and give. One should neither giving only, nor taking only. One should give something and then take something. If one party is only taking from others and never give something back to them, then it is injustice. A conflict will happen, or can happen when one feels exploited because of this. So how does spirituality influence our work for peace in Papua? So there is a violent conflict between Indonesia Vs Papua. The conflict between the government of Indonesia and the Indigenous Papuans begins in 1963. Until now, it is not settled yet. Both parties see each other as enemy. The Papuans are considered as being separatists, the state enemy, and Indonesia is seen by the Papuans as a colonial power. Then the relationship between them, the government of Indonesia and the Papuans, is characterized by enmity, suspicion, and mistrust. So right relationship is absent. Now many Papuans died at the hands of the military, but many people have been victims of human rights violations. Many members of Indonesian military and police were also killed by the Papuan resistance groups. Both parties justify their act of violence. Both. For Indonesia, violence is committed to maintain territorial integrity of Indonesia and to eradicate Papuan separatism. For the Papuans, violence is committed in order to decolonize the people and their ancestral land. So both justify the act of violence. So whatever the reason is, violence destroys right relationship. As a result, there is no salvation in community. Now, the government of Indonesia and the Papuans used to talk about each other, but never talk to each other. The broken relationship between the government of Indonesia and the Papuans must be restored. And the wall of suspicion and mistrust must be broken down. Therefore, many meetings between both parties are needed for confidence building and the restoration of the relationship between them. So there's a need of dialogue. As in the culture, the conflicting parties gather at the house of traditional leader. The elder facilitate meeting until both parties able to identify the problems and determine solutions. So it could take days, even weeks. They talk and talk and talk. So, but both conflicting parties are involved in the process of reconciliation. So, inspired by this cultural practice, a dialogue between the government of Indonesia and the Papuans is necessary. Because dialogue enables the government of Indonesia and the Papuans to meet as partners and jointly discuss on how to settle the conflict between them peacefully. It is in the dialogue that they could jointly identify the problems and determine solutions accepted by both parties. And this dialogue will lead to reconciliation between the two conflicting parties. Therefore, since 2010, the Papua Peace Network promotes dialogue as the means to settle conflicts not only between the government of Indonesia and Papuans, but also among the civilians. So Papua Peace Network, now we have 60 members coming from different Christian denominations, different religions, different tribes. The Papuans, Melanesians and Malay. So all are there, and we not representing any institution, but it is a voluntary work. So we represent ourselves only. And due to Due to the work of dialogue, the Papua Peace Network members are suspected threatened by some elements of government of Indonesia and Papuans. So the idea, the call for dialogue was not welcomed by all elements of Papuans, but also from the government side. Not all welcome the idea of dialogue. When I went to meet with the tribal, with the rebel leaders in the jungle, for example, I was suspected by the government of Indonesia that I am taking side with the rebels. But when I went to Jakarta and talked to the generals, the government officials, the ministers, and I was suspected by the Papuans that I'm taking sides with the government of Indonesia to kill ideology of independence. So, suspected by both. And I used to be under military surveillance. So wherever I go, they know. Yeah, perhaps also they know that I am in Manila. Yeah. Yeah. So it is not always welcomed by both. Yeah. Despite the challenges, Papua Peace Network plays our role as a facilitator. So we facilitate many meetings among the Papuans, meeting among the rebels, meeting among the Papuans and non-Papuans living in Papua. But also we organize some meetings between Papuans and the representative of the government of Indonesia. So we organize. So they suspect us, but we invite them, then they come for the meeting. So also it's like, yeah, not like, but they also need somebody to facilitate them to meet. So we play our, Papua Peace Network play our role as a facilitator. And it is true that all these meetings aim at breaking down the wall of suspicion and mistrust and slowly build up trust among them. That's what we, after many meetings, some generals, military generals in Jakarta, they said, now we want to talk with the rebels. So in the past, they suspect us. But after the meeting, some meetings, they decided want to talk with the rebels. So I think it is the meetings, more meetings will create a trust. Support for dialogue. After 7 years of work, now we can say that the call for dialogue is supported by many parties in Papua, religious leaders in Papua, church leaders, tribal leaders, women, local scholars, local parliaments, local government, and also some of the leaders of Papua Resistance Movement, some rebel leaders, commanders. But also in Jakarta, many parties support the dialogue as a means to settle the conflict. Parliament, scholars, and others, and NGOs, some government officials. An Indonesian Bishops' Conference has officially supported the proposal of dialogue to settle the Papua conflict. So, responding the call for dialogue, President Jokowi, this is the present President of Indonesia, has appointed 3 persons, including myself, to organize series of dialogue. So, this is my hope. 2018, Papuan Year of Dialogue. I realized that violence divides, but dialogue unites. A dialogue between the government of Indonesia and the Papua Resistance Group is necessary and should be prepared. The informal talks between both parties must be facilitated as to prepare the formal dialogue. So these 2 things we are discussing without publicity. So this is the very critical step. So this informal meeting. Informal meeting should be conducted without publicity. So we are now organizing this. So I'm sharing with you, hoping that there will be no publicity about this. Yeah. The informal talks between the both parties, government of Indonesia and the Papuan resistance movement, they must be facilitated as to prepare the formal dialogue. Formal dialogue will not happen without these informal talks. So I do hope that the government of Indonesia and the Papuans will begin their journey toward reconciliation through dialogue by 2018. So after this meeting, we will have a meeting, small group, to work out a plan about this informal dialogue. Yeah. Hopefully, it can be started by 2018. With your support and your prayers, this hope will come. It will happen. So, thank you so much.
I have had the